In the ancient village of Agbamere, where the harmattan winds carried whispers of old spirits and the red earth told stories of generations past, lived a wealthy farmer named Chukudi. His compound was the largest in the village, with mud houses arranged in a square pattern around a central courtyard, where a mighty Iroko tree provided shade. Chukwudi's barns overflowed with yams, his pens housed countless goats and chickens, and his wealth was known throughout the 7 villages of the region. But wealth, as the elders say, does not always reflect the richness of one's heart. Chukwudi had 2 wives, as was the custom. His first wife, Adayes, came from the eastern hills beyond the great river. She was a woman of gentle spirit, with hands that could weave the finest akwete cloth and a voice that could sing birds from their nests. She bore him a daughter named Kelechi, a child whose beauty rivaled the morning star. His second wife, Ngozi, was from Agbamere itself. She possessed a sharp tongue that could cut deeper than a farmer's machete, and a heart that harbored jealousy like a pot holds water. Ngozi gave birth to twin daughters, Adana and Ifeoma, and later a son named Emeka. Though both women lived within the same compound, their treatment was as different as day and night. Chukwudi showered Ngozi with coral beads from Benin, the finest George wrappers from Lagos, and delicious meals prepared by his servants. She lived in the main house, her children by her side, wanting for nothing. But Adayes and little Kelechi were relegated to a small hut near the compound's back wall, close to where the goats were kept. Perhaps it was because Adayes spoke with the accent of the hill people, or perhaps Chukwudi's heart had simply grown cold toward his first wife. Whatever the reason, mother and daughter lived like strangers in their own home. Adayes found solace in her talking drum, an ancient instrument carved from the sacred obeche tree given to her by her grandfather, who had been a master drummer in the eastern hills. The drum spoke in the old language, its voice carrying across villages to announce births, deaths, and celebrations. In the quiet evenings, as the sun painted the sky orange and purple, Adayes would sit beneath the mango tree with Kelechi, teaching her daughter the sacred rhythms passed down through generations. "Listen, my daughter," Adayes would say, her fingers dancing across the drum's taut goatskin surface. The drum speaks the language of our ancestors. When words fail, let the drum carry your voice to the heavens. Years flowed like the great Niger River, and Kelechi blossomed into a young woman of extraordinary beauty. Her skin glowed like polished bronze, her eyes held the wisdom of ancient queens, and her hands had learned to make the talking drum sing with a voice that could move even the hardest hearts. Then came the season when the rains failed to fall. Adayes, already weakened by years of neglect and sorrow, fell gravely ill. Her once bright eyes dimmed, her breathing became labored, and her beautiful voice grew weak. Kelechi ran to her father, desperation in her voice. "Papa, Mama is dying. Please, she needs the medicine man from the neighboring village." Chukwudi barely looked up from where he sat drinking palm wine with his friends. "If it is her time to join the ancestors, so be it," he said coldly. Ngozi, overhearing the conversation, laughed harshly. Maybe the spirits are calling her back to those eastern hills where she belongs. Young Kelechi tried everything. She gathered herbs from the forest, prepared hot pepper soup to warm her mother's body, and sang healing songs through the night. But as the cock crowed one grey morning, Adayes took her daughter's hand and whispered her final words. "My precious Kelechi, never let this world harden your heart. Keep playing the talking drum, for through it I will always be with you." With those words, Adaeze joined the ancestors, her spirit released like a bird taking flight. Kelechi's wails filled the morning air, but no one came to comfort her. Her mother was buried hastily behind the compound without the proper rites or ceremonies befitting a woman who had lived with such grace. From that day forward, Kelechi became a servant in her own father's house. Ngozi and her daughters treated her like a house girl. She fetched water from the distant stream, ground pepper on the stone, cooked meals she was rarely allowed to eat, and swept the compound until her back ached. Her only refuge was her mother's talking drum, which she kept hidden beneath her sleeping mat. On moonlit nights, when the compound was silent and even the crickets seemed to whisper, Kelechi would slip out to the old mango tree and play softly, her tears mixing with the ancient rhythms. "You think you're special because of that stupid drum," Adana would mock whenever she caught sight of it. "Play all you want, it won't bring your dead mother back." One day, a wealthy palm wine tapper named Okechukwu from the neighboring village of Umuhia came to Chukwudi's compound. He had heard tales of Kelechi's beauty and had come bearing gifts: a pot of the finest palm wine, a basket of dried fish, and a young goat. "I have come to ask for Kelechi's hand in marriage," he announced respectfully, following the ancient customs. Chukwudi's eyes lit up with the prospect of a good bride price, but before he could speak, Ngozi stepped forward sharply. "Kelechi, but who will do the housework if she leaves? This girl is not ready for marriage. She's still needed here." Okechukwu left disappointed, not knowing that behind the door, Kelechi had heard everything. That night, she clutched her mother's drum and wept until dawn. One scorching afternoon, when the sun sat like fire in the cloudless sky, Ngozi sent Kelechi to clear a vast portion of farmland alone. The earth was hard as stone, the weeds grew thick as a forest, and the sun showed no mercy. As Kelechi struggled with her hoe, her hands bleeding and her back breaking, a woman appeared as if materialized from the heat waves. She wore a simple white wrapper and head tie, her face kind and familiar, though Kelechi could not place where she had seen her before. "Let me help you, my child," the woman said gently. "No, thank you, ma," Kelechi replied, not wanting to burden a stranger. But the woman insisted, and to Kelechi's amazement, she worked with superhuman speed. In what seemed like minutes, the entire field was cleared and ready for planting. "Who are you?" Kelechi asked in wonder. The woman smiled mysteriously. "I am someone who has been watching over you, child. You have a kind heart and strong spirit. Never lose those gifts." Before Kelechi could ask more questions, the woman vanished like morning mist. This mysterious helper appeared several times over the following months, always when Kelechi needed help most, always bringing comfort and aid, but never revealing her true identity. Meanwhile, news spread throughout the land that Prince Chinedu, son of the great Eze Okole of the royal kingdom of Agbamere, had returned from his studies in the great city of Lagos. The king announced a grand celebration to welcome his son home. "Hear me, people of Agbamere," the town crier called out, his voice carrying across the village as he beat his gong. "Eze Okole declares that in 2 weeks' time, all maidens of marriageable age shall come to the palace. The prince seeks a wife, and she who can best entertain him with music and dance shall become his bride." The news set the village ablaze with excitement. Young women rushed to learn new songs and dances, while their mothers bought the finest wrappers, coral beads, and silver anklets they could afford. Ngozi immediately hired the best dance instructor in 3 villages to train Adana and Ifeoma. She bought them matching emerald green George wrappers, coral beads that clicked musically when they moved, and golden headpieces that caught the light like captured sunbeams. When Kelechi heard the announcement, her heart leaped with hope. Kelechi had always loved music, and the talking drum sang for her like a living thing. Maybe, just perhaps, this could be her chance to escape the misery of her father's house. Kelechi's hope rising. If you're rooting for her, hit that notification bell so you never miss our uploads. One evening, while Ngozi and her daughters were away at dance practice, Kelechi quietly brought out her mother's talking drum. She began to play and sing, her voice rising and falling with the ancient rhythms, her soul pouring out through the music. But Ngozi returned unexpectedly and caught her. "What is this nonsense?" she shrieked. "Are you practicing to join the other maidens at the palace? Do you think Prince Chinedu will look at a village rat like you?" Before Kelechi could protest, Ngozi snatched the drum from her hands and hurled it to the ground. The sacred instrument cracked with a sound like a breaking heart. "No!" Kelechi screamed, falling to her knees to gather the pieces. "Please, that was my mother's. It's all I have left of her." But Ngozi, her eyes glinting with cruelty, poured kerosene over the broken drum and set it ablaze. "You're nothing but a disgrace," she spat, watching the flames consume the sacred wood. "Instead of dreaming foolish dreams, go to the farm and clear the entire cassava field. If you don't finish before nightfall, I'll send you to join your useless mother in the grave." Kelechi stumbled to the farm, her heart shattered like the drum. She stared at the vast field through her tears, feeling utterly broken and alone. Then, like a miracle, the mysterious woman appeared again. This time, she carried a brand new talking drum, one even more beautiful than Adayeze's original, carved with intricate patterns and adorned with cowrie shells. "I saw what happened," the woman said gently. "Take this. Come here every day to practice and hide the drum in that hollow tree. The prince has a special love for the talking drum, and you, my child, are destined to play for him." 2 weeks later, the day of the great competition arrived. The palace of Eze Okole was a magnificent sight, built of red clay bricks and decorated with intricate bronze plaques telling the stories of ancient kings. Palm fronds and colorful cloths hung from every pillar, and the royal drummers announced the beginning of the festivities. Prince Chinedu sat on a carved wooden throne beside his father. The prince wore a rich purple wrapper with golden threads, coral beads across his chest, and a magnificent crown of eagle feathers. His father, Eze Okole, was resplendent in royal blue, his staff of authority topped with an ivory elephant head. Ngozi had dressed her daughters like queens. Adana wore a wrapper of deep blue silk with matching coral beads, while Ifeyoma shimmered in gold and red. Their hair was plaited in elaborate styles and adorned with fresh flowers and beads that caught the light with every movement. Before leaving for the palace, Ngozi turned to Kelechi with venom in her eyes. "Crack all these palm nuts before we return," she commanded, dropping a huge basket at Kelechi's feet. "And listen carefully. If I see your shadow anywhere near the palace, you'll regret the day you were born." As the family left in their finest clothes, their laughter fading into the distance, Kelechi sat alone in the empty compound, her heart heavy with despair. Suddenly, the mysterious woman appeared once more, but this time she carried more than just comfort. She had a large basket filled with the most beautiful clothes Kelechi had ever seen. A wrapper of royal purple silk with golden embroidery, coral beads that seemed to glow with inner light, silver anklets that chimed like temple bells, and a magnificent headpiece of cowrie shells and feathers. "Go and bathe in the stream," the woman instructed kindly. "I'll wait here." When Kelechi returned, clean and refreshed, the woman worked magic with her hands. She braided Kelechi's hair into an intricate pattern that spoke of royalty, rubbed sweet-scented shea butter on her skin until it glowed like polished bronze, and dressed her in the magnificent wrapper. Finally, she placed the talking drum in Kelechi's hands. Why are you doing all this for me? Kelechi asked, overwhelmed by the woman's kindness. The woman looked deep into her eyes and smiled mysteriously. You'll know soon enough, my daughter. Now go, let your light shine before the world. When Kelechi looked at her reflection in the stream, she gasped. She looked like a princess from the ancient stories, radiant, regal, and beautiful beyond description. At the palace, maiden after maiden performed before the prince. Some danced the traditional Ojene dance, others sang popular songs, and a few attempted poetry. But Prince Chinedu sat unmoved, his expression showing polite interest but no real engagement. Then Kelechi arrived. This is the moment we've all been waiting for. If you're as excited as we are, let us know in the comments. A hush fell over the crowd as she walked into the royal courtyard. Who was this stunning young woman? Even the palace guards stopped to stare. When her turn came, Kelechi stepped forward with quiet confidence. She placed the talking drum before her and began to play. But this was no ordinary performance. The drum seemed to speak in the ancient language of the spirits, telling stories of love, loss, hope, and triumph. Her voice rose and fell with the rhythms, singing in the old tongue of her mother's people. The sound echoed off the palace walls like the voice of the ancestors themselves. Prince Chinedu, who had remained unmoved all day, suddenly leaned forward, his eyes wide with wonder and recognition. Something deep in his soul responded to the ancient music. He stood, walked to where his royal flute hung on the wall, and joined Kelechi in the most beautiful duet the kingdom had ever heard. The talking drum and the royal flute spoke to each other in perfect harmony, weaving a song that seemed to connect earth and heaven. When the music ended, the palace fell completely silent for a long moment. Then thunderous applause erupted. People wept, cheered, and rose to their feet in wonder. Prince Chinedu turned to his father and whispered urgently in his ear. Eze Okole stood, raised his staff of authority, and declared in a voice that carried across the kingdom, "My people, the prince has made his choice. He chooses the maiden with the talking drum. He chooses Kelechi as his bride." Yes, but wait, there's still more drama ahead. Don't stop watching now. The crowd erupted in celebration, but from the back of the gathering, a furious voice cut through the joy. "She's a thief!" Ngozi shouted, standing with rage contorting her face. "She stole that drum and those clothes. A poor village girl like her could never afford such finery." Gasps of shock rippled through the crowd. All eyes turned to Kelechi, and for a moment her heart stopped with fear. Eze Okole raised his hand for silence and turned to the young woman. "Kelechi," he said firmly, "speak the truth. Did you steal these things?" Before she could answer, the mysterious woman stepped forward from among the crowd. Though she still wore simple clothes, her presence commanded respect and attention. "It's a lie," she said, her voice carrying the authority of truth. "I gave her those clothes. I gave her the drum. This girl has been mistreated by her stepmother since childhood, beaten, starved, and denied even the memory of her late mother." Murmurs of support rose from the crowd. Several village women stood up. "She speaks the truth," one called out. "We've seen how Ngozi treats the girl. Like a slave in her own father's house," another added. Eze Okole's face darkened as he turned to Ngozi. "For lying before the king and for your cruelty to your stepdaughter, you shall serve in the palace kitchens for 6 months. Perhaps there you will learn humility and kindness." The crowd cheered as guards led the protesting Ngozi away. Adana and Ifeoma hung their heads in shame. while Chukwudi stared at the ground, finally understanding the magnitude of his failures as a father. Later that evening, as the palace celebrated and preparations began for the royal wedding, Kelechi found the mysterious woman in a quiet corner of the gardens beneath a blooming frangipani tree. "Thank you," Kelechi said softly, tears of gratitude flowing down her cheeks. "I don't know how to repay such kindness." The woman took her hands gently and looked deep into her eyes. "Don't be afraid of what I am about to tell you," she said. "I am your mother." Kelechi's eyes widened in shock. "But Mama died. I buried her with my own hands." "Yes, my body died," the woman replied, her voice filled with infinite love. "But my spirit could not rest while you suffered. I have been watching over you, helping you, waiting for this moment when you would finally be safe and happy." Tears poured down Kelechi's face as she threw her arms around her mother's spirit. For a moment, she felt the warmth and love she had missed for so many years. "Now I can rest in peace," Adaeze whispered. "You are safe, my daughter. You are loved. You are exactly where you belong." As she spoke, her form began to shimmer and fade like morning mist. She smiled one last time, whispered, "I love you," and vanished into the gentle evening breeze. 3 days later, the palace of Eze Okole hosted the most magnificent wedding the kingdom had ever seen. Kelechi, now Princess Kelechi, wore a wrapper of pure silk the color of sunset, with coral beads from the ancient kingdom of Benin and a crown of gold and precious stones. Prince Chinedu was resplendent in royal robes of deep purple and gold, his crown gleaming with the authority of his lineage. The entire kingdom came to celebrate. Traditional dancers filled the courtyards, drummers played rhythms that had echoed through centuries, and praise singers told the story of the drummer's daughter who became a princess. Chukwudi, humbled and full of remorse, approached his daughter and knelt before her. "My daughter," he said, his voice breaking with emotion, "I have been a terrible father. Can you ever forgive me?" Kelechi, her heart now healed by love and security, helped her father to his feet. "Papa, forgiveness is the beginning of healing," she said. "I forgive you, and I hope you can forgive yourself." As she danced with her new husband, surrounded by the love of an entire kingdom, Kelechi looked up at the star-filled sky and whispered, "Thank you, Mama. Thank you for never giving up on me." From that day forward, the talking drum in the palace no longer spoke of sorrow or loneliness. It sang of joy, hope, love, and the unbreakable bond between a mother and daughter that not even death could sever. And in villages across the land, griots and storytellers began to sing a new tale, the story of the drummer's daughter who married a prince, and of a mother's love so strong that it reached from beyond the grave to lift her child to the throne. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey through Nigerian folklore. If you loved this story, subscribe to our channel for more amazing African tales. Like this video if it touched your heart, and share it with someone who needs to believe in the power of hope and resilience. What did you think of Kelechi's story? Let us know in the comments below. Until next time, May your dreams be as strong as a mother's love.